My name is Dirk Ahlborn. I'm the CEO of Jumpstarter Inc. and Hyperloop Transportation Technologies. I think most of the technologies that we're going to see in the next few years are already existing. So it's most of the time it's something that has to do with regulation. So self-driving cars, I think, will impact us a lot. It will change the way we live in terms of traffic, cities. Hopefully we get more green spaces. Artificial intelligence is making our lives easier. Internet of Things, everything is connected. So these are all things that are going to come. Now, what are we going to make out of it? That's a different story. So when Elon Musk proposed the Hyperloop, we had just launched in beta with Jumpstart Fund. So our platform is all about taking ideas and making them into successful companies. So and here was an idea. It was an successful entrepreneur who said that he thinks that this really should be done, but he didn't have the time to dedicate himself to it. So it was a perfect poster child. And we reached out, put it onto the platform, and to be honest, the response was overwhelming. So many people not only said, hey, you guys should do this, but they said, hey, I want to do this. I want to be part of this. So we went forward, put a small team together, and created the company, and then said, well, everybody who would like to join in exchange for stock options, please apply. I think within a couple of weeks or so, we had more than 200 applications, and we got a team together of around 100 people. The company is completely crowd-powered. So that means that from the person that answers to a team application right now to the guys working on the propulsion system, everybody is part of the team and came through a crowdsourcing mechanism. So they applied to join the team, they're getting stock options, and then we do what we call crowdstorming activities. So we actually ask the general public. So I get a lot of emails. People are just contacting me on LinkedIn, on Facebook, with ideas or contacts. So they're introducing us to a potential investor or to someone else who might be very beneficial. So, we're working with very large corporations right now. So, and everything came out of the crowd. Even the land we're going to be using for the first installation came out of our community. So everything is really built on the crowd and our community. So we had several possibilities, but Quail Valley is, first of all, it's close to home, so I don't have to drive that far, right? It's an advantage if you can be back in a couple of hours. But it's right next to the I-5, so there's an historical value. The initial project was presented went along the I-5, and it actually makes sense. So rather than building it somewhere in the desert and spending a lot of money and then not using it, in Quail Valley we can build something that can be used every single day. They're building a completely new city, and it's a model town of the 21st century, so it's on the cutting edge of technology. They're using the top water resource technologies. Everything is going to be solar powered, so it's 100% solar powered, very walkable. But they're also going to be having an entertainment district. So there's 3 different resorts, a theme park, a big shopping component. So we actually can move 10 million people a year, which is a lot. For us to be able to optimize all the systems and test everything out. So it was just a perfect fit. I think in general, California needs to expand, and it's getting harder and harder to live in the valley or live in LA. So the Central Valley is actually the only place where we can extend to, if you want so. So building a city that creates jobs, which Quail Valley does, which has a university in itself, will help the development in those areas. But obviously having a Hyperloop that gets you from there to San Francisco or to LA within 20 minutes would help a lot more. Where would you be tonight if you could be in LA within 36 minutes, or better, where would you be tomorrow morning? Because it's beautiful in LA right now and the beaches are awesome. I would come a lot more often to San Francisco and go to dinner or enjoy great play, or, obviously for work it's an advantage. You don't necessarily need to stay over anymore, but it's more than just LA to San Francisco. So it's a metro system. It's something that connects the different metropolitan areas. And the main difference is really that if you look at this industry, so the rail industry, there is not one rail system in the world that's profitable right now. So all of them are subsidized by the government. And in our case, the Hyperloop actually makes business sense. So we are entrepreneurs. We're looking at how can this become something that pays for itself, and it does. So it's going to be a faster mode of transportation that actually generates income. So very likely we'll see a lot of them, hopefully, and much faster than there would be if it would be just a normal public transport system. In general, we know that everything we do has to be done in a way that it's very familiar to what you already know. I mean, if you work in transportation, it has to be suitable for someone who's 2 years old as much as for someone who's 80. So every time we work with our architects, with our designers, we always tell them to not make it too futuristic looking. It has to be very similar to a train, a subway, an airplane, so something you already are familiar with. And at the end, it's much less unspectacular than you would think. So, what you really feel is the acceleration and the deceleration. You don't feel the speed. So you can make it a very comfortable ride. You start with your immediate network. So I think a lot of the times what people and what everybody who works on a project, the error they make is that they talk to a lot of people, and a lot of times they say, hey, this is awesome, great. But they never say, well, if you think it's awesome, just join, help me, right? So in our case, the way we work, we have two ways of, in the way people can join. They either become a part of the team, so they're earning part of the company, in exchange for their work, or they're part of the community. And we have 10% of the future revenues that are reserved for the community. So based on where the community contributes and where you in the community contribute, you'll receive from the upside of the company in the future. So it's really just talking to people and tell them that you would like them to help and join and be part of your community, and check in from time to time and talk to them, and just be like, if I mean, we are on Facebook all day long and we show people what we eat, but if more people would say, hey, I just did this, what do you guys think? Or is this a good way to make money? Or anybody has a different idea. I personally believe that if you think that's valuable, you should also give something back. So that's why we have this model where we share the future revenues with our community. So we actually have a lot of startup companies that are part of the team. They have great ideas. We are also looking at creating different platforms when we talk about first and last mile, and when it's about making travel suck less. So I think that we can only have so many ideas or work on so many projects. So if we create an infrastructure where different startups can actually join and offer their services, and we can at the end give the best services to the customer. We know that once we finish Quail Valley, the first place where this is actually going to happen is going to be the Middle East, which probably is developed world, Asia, or Africa. So we had a lot of talks in Africa, and just like they jumped landlines and went directly to mobile phones, right? It doesn't make sense to create infrastructure that costs money when you can create infrastructure that actually generates income, is environment friendly, because it uses all the energy that itself produces, and has a lot of other advantages, like actually solving local electricity problems. So yes, I think then the undeveloped areas are our key target. Well, for the company, it's easy. So working with people that are passionate about what they're doing is the best thing that can happen to you. I've had a lot of companies prior to that, so finding the right employees is impossible. And not because they're bad, but just because you don't really know how to manage them, and they have different agendas from yours. They don't have maybe necessarily your vision because they work for the salary. So if you have people that are working because they believe in what you're doing and what they're doing, and even if there's no money, no funding, continue the work, because that's what we're doing right now, right? So they're not getting anything. That's the best way to actually figure out who would you hire when you have a lot of money. I mean, we have so many great, amazing people on our team that, and they're working all after their day jobs, that if we can get them full-time on the team, I can't even imagine how kick-ass they're going to be. So I think that's really my favorite. All right, so what gets me excited about the Hyperloop? For sure the speed, but every time I'm in an airport and I feel treated like an animal, I can't wait until we solve this problem and make it just a better experience. I mean, we talk with a lot of airports, we talk with airlines, train operators, so that everybody kind of understands that that's an issue, but I think they have a very hard time to innovate. So it takes a couple of different minds, and I think crowdsourcing is perfect to do this. So, there's no reason for me to stand in line at the TSA waiting for 30 minutes when in real, I mean, if you look on YouTube, anybody can bring anything on the other side, and that's not a terrorist, but even a crazy lady can just get something on the other side. So there's no real reason why we're doing this. There's better alternatives. There's things that we can do without being disturbed in our travel, and actually make travel become an experience. And I want to have that again. I want to be excited that I travel to San Francisco and not be like, oh no, now I have to take an airplane. So it used to be that way one day, and that's really what I'm excited about.